Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, my dear brothers and sisters, viewers of Iqra TV. Welcome to part 2 of Real Talk. Today I'm talking to Maulana Abu Bakr from Huddersfield. And before we went to the break, we talked about young people and how some young people, mashallah, not all of them, are distancing themselves from the faith of Islam. And what is the reason and the purpose behind that? And what do we as adults and people who are supposed to be, guides for the future of our generation, what do we have to do? What is our responsibility? And particularly our madrasas and our mosques and our imams. And as Maulana said before we went for the break, young people are actually keen to be part of the Muslim community and the Muslim Ummah, but they want, they have answers. Really, the world has changed quite a lot, and they want answers, the challenges that are facing out there. And our institutions and our ulama are not in a position, or are unwilling or unable to provide some of those answers. I remember going to one of our main masjids where I live, and the Imam Sahib said to the congregation one day, says, I was driving past this masjid with some young people in a car, and one of the young people who was in the car with me pointed to the masjid and says, Maulana, we don't like coming to this masjid because we consider that masjid to be toxic. Now, for a young person to use the word toxic, in my opinion, is extremely serious. And I'm sure Maulana Abu Bakr, as he said before, there are a lot of young people who want some answers, and the answers are there. Islam provides all the answers to any question that anybody has, whether it's to do with a personal issue or a worldly issue. The Quran and the Sunnah provide all the answers. Yet for some reason we are unable to communicate those answers to them. So Maulana, you talked about institutions. So the institutions, as I said, when I've been to America and Canada, those, I don't know whether you've been, I'm sure you have, but those institutions are very different. Why is it that we seem to be unable to provide a holistic approach?
I think we spoke briefly about this the last time as well, about the role of a masjid being much more than just a place of ibadah, so I'm not going to go much into that. The issue we have is that sometimes, unfortunately, the individuals leading these institutions, those that are responsible for providing the services from those institutions, from those masajid, sometimes lack that vision,
right,
where they have a certain mindset or a misunderstanding, or perhaps they don't see these issues as serious as they are. Like you said, again, I'm going to go back to that because it's kind of shocking where you said the organization, ex-Muslims, 100,000 plus members, right? That's shocking, absolutely shocking.
Horrific. It's horrific.
And for somebody to still kind of think that it's not really an issue, it doesn't affect me, it doesn't affect myself.
Is that you think the primary reason people are so laid back and not concerned because it doesn't affect them, not realizing that it does affect a vast majority of people?
I think Iqbal, but even in today's kind of climate of Islamophobia and anti-Muslim hatred as well, and I've seen this because I worked for MEND for many years, and we were at the forefront of of dealing with Islamophobic cases every single day. And what we always saw was we're going to the masajid, going to the communities, trying to explain to them that, look, this is a situation. You need to wake up, you need to help us to tackle this. But it was always that, oh, not really, I've never really experienced it. I mean, Dewsbury Sharif, Batley Sharif, we're fine here. This is one of those harams where the angels are surrounding and no evil will come inside. So you've got that kind of mindset. And it's only when it happens to them, then we can't allow this to happen. But by that time it's too late.
Too late.
We could have stopped that from happening, but you're waiting, and the same is across sadly, most of our challenges we're facing today, is we're not willing to accept those until it happens to us as a community, and sometimes it'll even happen in our community, but we still won't find it problematic because we haven't experienced it. Yeah. So a sister's hijab's been pulled off in my community. It wasn't my mother or my sister, so it's not really my fault. It
affects somebody else.
Yeah, it'll be, who told them to let their mother or sister out of the house, or who told them this and that. And so that's the situation. Is there are many many Muslims and many institutions, many leaders who are living in their bubbles where they feel that they'll be protected and nothing will ever penetrate that. Whereas when it does, it'll come hard and it will affect every single person.
And we're seeing that now, the rise of the right at the moment, you know, the anti-Muslim hatred that is being perpetrated and permeated in our community. We've seen how people on the extreme right are now using this as an opportunity on the back of immigration and nationality, etc., to try and attack Islam and Muslims in every corner, in every facet of life. And as Maulana says, if we don't wake up now, Allah protect us. And now the conversation I've been having with some of my senior colleagues is, what is our exit strategy? Hum kahan jayenge yahan se? Right? We need to start preparing. And I believe Baroness Saeed Awasi, who has been at the highest level of politics in this country, also made a statement a few weeks ago, a couple of months ago, to say Muslims now need to look at having an exit strategy. So coming back to Maulana's point, are we still living in this blind vision without recognizing some of the challenges that we're facing? So what would you say to the people who are running these institutions? You know, and I've said to people, do you realize the enormous responsibility you carry on your shoulders? You've decided to become the chair, vice chair of these institutions, but it's not just, like you say, running the masjid and that opening 5 times a day for prayer. What would you say, Maulana Sahib?
Brother, the community has to choose the right leaders, the right individuals to be running those institutions. I've seen institutions and masajid where you have a chairman who comes to the masjid once a week. Now, if you've got a chairman who's coming to the masjid once a week, how does he know what the congregation wants? How does he know what the congregation is going through? I mean, he may be somebody who's living in the community, but you know, as somebody who's running an institution, you need to be there. I understand these are voluntary roles, etc., but it's the voluntary roles, but you've taken that responsibility.
Yes.
And I think people don't understand that aspect of it, that, oh, it's voluntary, I'm not taking payment, be grateful for what I'm doing. The issue is, when you've taken that responsibility, you have put that amana on yourself, that I now have to fulfill that. And if you're not able to fulfill it, you have to step away. And so, coming back to the question, is that we need leaders who are visionary. You need individuals who are at the top to understand the challenges the community is facing, and then together with the community, think of ways to tackle those. Think of ways how we can try to dismiss those challenges, how we can face those challenges and come out of those challenges. Very rarely will you have a masjid having a kind of an open meeting with the community. Very rarely. Right? What are the challenges? This is what we've seen as management. What about yourselves as congregations? Where do you hardly get that from? Whereas it is not mashwara part of our deen. When Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam used to sit in Masjid al-Nabawi, he used to take opinion of the Sahaba. And the Sahaba would give their opinions. Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, being even a Nabi, being a messenger of Allah, getting direct wahi from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, still was showing the importance of mashwara. And that's what's missing. Our whole kind of leadership structure is broken, from the selection of leaders to the way the operations are to everything. It's completely broken.
What about the role of imams? Because to me, the imam is also a leader of the community. And the imam, in my view, should understand how the community is changing. And therefore, the imam needs to take on the role of the change maker. But do we still have imams who are fixed in their thoughts about what is the role of the imam? Mera role hai, main aata hoon, namaz padhata hoon, bayan karta hoon, chala jata hoon. Right? And beyond that, it's not my role and responsibility. Is this where your thoughts about they live in their own little bubbles?
So again, with imams as well, it's one of those situations where how much can you expect from one person? The imam has to be, sadly, the individual who leads the salah 5 times a day. He has to be an individual who's a counselor. He has to be an individual who is a youth worker. He has to be this, has to be that. It's like we want to make the imam a professional in everything, Whereas, yes, I completely agree that the imams have a much larger role. They are the leaders. And then it's their responsibility to bring influence within their circles, whether it's the masjid that they're serving or the area they're serving. And in that, it doesn't mean that the imam has to be a lawyer, the imam has to be a doctor, the imam has to be the youth worker, the imam has to be, no. The imam has to be the leader that brings in others who can fulfill those roles, those other roles that need fulfilling. So if there's an issue with marriages breaking down in your community, bring in a marriage, imam doesn't have to be the marriage counselor.
Exactly, no, I
Bring
agree.
in a professional marriage counselor who's under the imam and provide that service.
But the imam has to show that leadership.
Yes, yes.
But sometimes the committees won't let them provide the leadership.
Unfortunately, because there's a power struggle.
Yes.
If we give the imam too much of a free rein, they'll topple us over and take over.
Yeah.
So there's sadly issues of power, of power, and this is where I think the reason some of these managements fear that is because of the structures are not done properly. My firm belief is that the masjid has to be run as a corporation, as a business. Until it's not run in that way, we'll always have these issues of safeguarding, we'll have these issues of power struggle, we'll have these issues of people stepping on other people's toes when it comes to duties, etc. When you have a clear structure, then nobody's worrying about who's going to take over whose roles, because you have it all listed, you have the paperwork, you have the documents, nobody can overthrow anyone. Is when you try to do things under the table and try to do things unprofessionally, then these issues happen.
One of the arguments that some of the elderly people make is that young people are thin, right? So it's been left to the older generation to continue to run these institutions, which to a certain extent may be true. But there's also this issue about young people saying, when we come, they don't listen to us anyway. Is that something you've experienced?
What I've experienced, Iqbal, is when it comes to management, one of the first things that sometimes we look at is, these young people, they want to be part of the masjid. Okay, you know what? Come on, are you going to come and clean the toilets? Are you going to come and vacuum the masjid? And that's what they've kind of limited the role of a committee to, or the role of a management to, cleaning the toilets, vacuuming the masjid, preparing for Jummah, etc. And for that reason, there needs to be kind of a broader management. Yes, you have elders in there who are responsible for a certain part. You have certain mid-age people who are responsible for a certain aspect. The young people, let them focus on their on their expertise, right? If they can bring in something which you don't already have, then why not bring them on that? I mean, it doesn't even have to be make them part of management. I've actually given this advice to so many masajid where I've said, look, you as a management are the committee, you're the trustees. Why don't you make a team of volunteers? You tell them, this team of volunteers, you're responsible for the social media. You do what you need to do. This team, you're responsible for the events throughout the year. You do what you need to do. This team, you're responsible for this.
That presupposes that the people in the management committee, particularly the elderly ones, are willing to let go of some of those powers, you see.
But they're not letting go.
Exactly.
Because they're still the trustees.
Yes.
The final say, this is where sometimes they don't understand. The final say is still with them. They still have full control. But all they're doing is, you guys carry on. Whenever if they see something problematic, nobody's perfect. I mean, sometimes young people can get a bit overzealous and overexcited.
We all make mistakes. We all make mistakes.
We can sometimes, which may not be appropriate for a masjid. In those cases, that's where the trustees come in. Okay, you know what? Good idea, but it might not work. Let's just give this a miss, carry on with the rest. It's, when you're continuously pushing people away and continuously stopping things from happening, that's when you'll get that friction and people will break away and people say, what's the point?
I'm sure there will be many people watching this program who are involved directly or indirectly with the institutions that we've been talking about, the mosque and the madrasas as well. And if you have some experience that you would like to share with us, please phone in 01274 214 299. And I know a lot of sisters are not involved in the running of the masjids and the madrasas, but you may have ideas because your children have attended masjids and madrasas, and you would have experienced something that, you know, they and tried to sort of alert people, but you feel that, you know, either they've listened to you or they've not listened to you. Whichever it is, you know, please let us know whether it's been a positive experience or a negative experience. It will help in this discussion and debate. Now, we talked about reverts as well. Right? Now, you know, obviously we're seeing more and more reverts by the grace of Allah coming into the fold of Islam. And I remember one of my issues is that if a non-Muslim is thinking of joining the fold of Islam, then don't watch the people from the South Asian continent on their behavior, because if you watch their behavior and their attitudes, you won't find Islam as a welcoming faith. Is that something that you've experienced in the past as well?
Absolutely, my boy. And after our last conversation a few weeks ago, I actually had a non-Muslim brother, a convert brother, who reached out to me after seeing our conversation last time, and this was sadly somebody from my own town.
Oh, right. From
my own town, and this is we're talking about somebody who accepted Islam about 13 years ago.
MashaAllah.
And he said, "Look, can I ask you a question? I saw this episode of yours where you were talking about this, and you mentioned something about converting, etc. Because I recall we had that conversation." And his experience was exactly what you've mentioned. He's accepted Islam. Now he's come to the masjid. He says, the first time I came to the masjid, I did my wudu, went into the masjid to read salah. As I stood in the saf, one of the musallis came and shoulder barged him quite hard.
Oh my goodness.
Where he said that I barely was able to stop myself from going into the person in front.
Falling over, yeah.
So it must have been quite,
must have been quite hard.
It's not one of those where you're walking past and you slightly hit somebody and that. With that kind of pressure, you know, to that extent. And then he says, then the person stood next to him, started salah. And he said, when we were going to sujood, the person with his elbows, he's like continuously kind of on purpose trying to make it uncomfortable for him to do his sajda properly. And so this person I mean, if it was me, I probably would have broken my salah and made him break his salah. Make him break his salah and kind of, you know, what are you doing? But this person, he said, look, I was patient with it. And he thought, you know what I'll do is I'll go speak to the imam after the salah. After the salah, he goes to the imam and he says the imam looked at me with suspicion and with aggressiveness. That, wait, who are you? You're a white man that's in the masjid and you're complaining about our regular musallis. And he said, I've never been to a masjid since.
Oh my goodness.
And he messaged me literally about a couple of days after we had that conversation a few weeks ago. And he had accepted Islam about 13 years ago. Now imagine the experience he's had in the masjid has sadly led to him being not able to benefit from the environment of the masjid for 13, 14 years. Who's to blame for that?
Yes, yes.
Who's
if
going to
the person
answer?
who did it is watching, may I say, get down on your knees and pray for forgiveness from Allah. Because, you know, what your actions...
This is very common. This is just one example. But I know personally of other situations where similar things have happened, where people are coming to Islam because they understand Islam is the truth. As I was saying at the beginning, people love Islam. But it's the institutions or the character of the people that supposedly are representing Islam that turns people away.
Yeah, I mean, I had a few years ago a young revert Muslim lady from Bradford who came to my program, and you know, her story was equally as horrendous as well, about how when she was only 18 when she became a revert, and then, you know, she was disowned by her own family, which happens with many reverts, and they didn't want to see her, know her, have anything to do with her, and she moved into a Muslim area in the hope that she would get some moral support from people. And in fact, she was shunned by the Muslim family and the Muslim community as well, because she was a Gori. Right? And what the hell is she doing, you know, in the fold of Islam? And she got to a really, really difficult, challenging stage. And she said to me, it was so bad that at one stage I even thought about going back to my Christianity. But luckily, you know, she came across a Muslim lady whom she'd known before, and, you know, through her she protected Islam and Iman, and became one of these Muslim sort of teachers as well. But she actually then went to Makkah Mosque in Leeds, because she found much more comfortable environment over there. So this is something that obviously is of concern.
Just on that point, you mentioned about, when individuals come into Islam, there is a huge responsibility on the ummah to make them feel welcomed, and that's why even within the 5 pillars that we have, the pillar of zakat, where in the 10th juz Allah mentions the recipients of zakah. Now, one of those recipients, I'm talking strictly from a fiqh perspective, not necessarily from a kind of a practical kind of perspective, is within the recipients of zakah, there's one recipient, al-mu'allafa qulubuhum. And Shah Waliullah rahimahullah, he writes under that mu'allafa qulubuhum is that these are one of the individuals under this category. Mu'allafa qulub is basically, which it translates to winning hearts over.
Right.
And under there, Shah Waliullah writes that one of these is individuals who have just recently come to Islam, where even financially we have to be supporting them because of the loss of support they may have had from their families. Not only that, even individuals who are on the verge of Islam. I know there's a difference of opinion amongst the scholars on this, but there's even a view that even if someone hasn't yet accepted Islam, but they're very close to, but they're fearful of
process,
and they're fearful of losing the support system. You can even give zakat to them whilst they're non-Muslim, to encourage them that, look, when you come to this ummah, you're going to be part of this new society, and we're going to be here to support you.
Yes.
But nowadays, there's no such support as such.
Well, I know, I'm luckily in Batley, for example, where I come from, we have, ulama have set up, Maulana Usab, I think was behind it, set up, or helped set up a charity called Al-Ihsan. And one of the primary purposes of that charity is actually to support young Muslim reverts who have lost all the support from their family. I mean, I don't have much details about it, but I know that that is one of the targets that they've aimed at. That there are many Muslim reverts, particularly females in some cases, who have married Muslim men, and then for whatever reasons the marriage have failed, so they find themselves on their own with children, and they've got no sort of natural family to go to, and no new family to accept them as well. So they're completely lost in between the two communities, and that's the type of people they're trying to help.
That's where the ummah needs to fill that gap.
Yeah, and again, as I say, one of the problems I think is very apparent is that not many people give their zakat to this particular charity, where it is really needed. So as Maulana says, this is really, clarifying the fact that, in Islam, it actually encourages you to do that, to give your zakat. So I would urge every one of you who is watching this program, particularly those living in Batley, Dewsbury area, if you have, everybody has to take out zakat. You don't have a choice, my friends. It is one of the prerequisites of being a Muslim. There's no doubt about it. But what I would say to you is, by all means, पहला हकदार तो अपने रिश्तेदार होते हैं. There's no doubt about that. But also, let's not forget that there are people in our community who are suffering for all sorts of reasons. Either they're reverts or their families where they don't have an income. Particularly at the moment, we know a lot of asylum seekers and refugees who have come into this country who have no means to any funds whatsoever, or very limited means to funds. And I know in Bradford, for example, there's the Shadi Hussain and his group do quite a lot of work with the refugees and asylum seekers. So please, and there will be other organizations in your local areas. Please, I would urge you to look at those organizations up and try and support them as much as you can with your zakat. Not 100%, obviously, I'm saying to you, but make sure that a proportion of your zakat goes to these institutions so they can help our fellow Muslim brothers and sisters.
Just on, as you kind of mentioned, like, well, is one thing, some ulama might disagree with me on this, but I'm sure the books of fiqh will probably kind of help on this, is that, you're talking about kind of when we're giving locally. I know, I very well know Ihsan Compassion Fund, and much of the ulama behind it, etc. Numerous conversations with them myself.
Good.
Is that, yes, that is another issue, is we're not looking at the needs of our local communities. Whereas, I know we're not talking about the subject of zakat today, but zakat in its essence, this is an agreement amongst the 4 schools of thought.
Right.
This is an agreement amongst the 4 schools of thought that in its essence, zakat is supposed to be a localized institute.
Right.
Where it's there for the local community, not necessarily international. I mean, I understand the dynamics today are very different, and we do have a responsibility to the global ummah. But the fact of the matter is that because of its, importance within local communities, absolutely you have to give some portion to the organizations that are serving in your areas. Yes, give 80% abroad, but nowadays you'll probably only get 1-2% that will be donated locally. Otherwise, it's all going abroad.
All goes abroad, yeah, And I remember having a discussion with one of my ulama at one stage, and his priority was forget everybody else. Hamara institution ko de do. And I know people who had families who were haqdars of zakat, and he was saying to that person, no, forget them. Hamare liye pehle socho. And I thought, is this supposed to be one of our leaders in our community? And this, obviously this is not about zakat. Well, just turning, I know we're running out of time. Obviously, there's lots of issues that we can talk about internally, as I say. In my opinion, we've got 2 challenges. We've got the challenges of young people and the challenges of, Islamophobia and anti-Muslim hatred that is being perpetrated at the moment. So as a Muslim community in Huddersfield, in Batley, in Dewsbury, etc., I now notice when I go out and see white people that their attitude towards this is changing. There's no doubt about it. And I know a lot of sisters particularly feel it. Now, have we done enough, in your view, to try and represent Islam in the way it should be represented? Now, inshallah, I'll be one of the imams from Doha, who's been on my program before. He's going to come on my program next week or the week after. And he said to me when I was here last time that the reason when Malaysia, how he became Muslim, is when the Sahabas went there as traders and they settled there, the local people saw them behave like proper Muslims the way they should behave. And slowly, when they watched their behavior, the whole of the country reverted to Islam. Do you think we have failed in our duty to do that, not just in this country, but across the world?
Well, my personal opinion, and I may be kind of on my own on this. My personal opinion is that no matter how much we do as Muslims, there will always be certain people. I'm not talking about majority. Talking about a minority of people who are racist to their core, who are Islamophobic.
Oh, they'll never change.
And no matter how much we do, they will continuously look for any small issue to push this narrative that Muslims are a problem. So even if we were white as milk, even then they would bring something to show that no, they are the problems. But like I said, that's a very small minority. In terms of as a community, have we done enough? We are doing a lot. When we look at Muslim investment in this country, it's way above our own weight. When we look at donations, charity, it's way above anybody else. When we look at business-wise, we're way above our weight. So we are doing a lot. The issue is that sometimes we're not good at showing that. We don't show it. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, this is probably from a few years ago, Muslim Charities Forum, they mentioned that British Muslims just in the month of Ramadan donate over £150 million into charity in 1 month.
Yes.
Now that's a huge figure.
An absolutely massive amount.
That's a huge figure from a community that's only what 3 million, 4 million.
Yeah.
It's almost as each person giving. You can imagine how much that is, and so we're not very good at kind of showing that to people. Maybe perhaps because we have this understanding of we need to be humble, we need to be modest, we need to be kind of do our good deeds to our good deeds, which is fine, absolutely fine. It's part of it. But at the same time, even within our deen, the Prophet did encourage at times for people to give openly so people can see. So that it encourages others. that it gives a good message to others. And I think sometimes that's not what we're good at. I mean, about a couple of years ago, National Zakat Foundation, you may have heard of, they released a report where from their intervention, basically they supported just under about 1,000 families who had who were facing eviction from their homes. So they stepped in before they could be evicted to save them from becoming evicted.
Right.
And it cost them about, if I'm not mistaken, the report said just under 400,000 to support those kind of families. Now, it cost them 400,000. Had those families and individuals become homeless, do you know how much it costs the government to rehouse them?
Cost a fortune.
It costs about £35,000 per person
family,
to rehouse.
Right.
Now, take those 1,000 people, multiply by 35,000, you're looking at 20-30 million pounds it would have cost the government. But because of National Zakat Foundation's intervention, that was all done in 400,000 pounds.
Yeah, yeah.
So essentially, I'm not saying the intention was to save the government money, but essentially you saved the government almost 20 million pounds through our work, which through that work, which was zakat. So yes, it was from Muslims to Muslims, but look at the benefit the
country benefited.
The country benefited.
And I think, you just reminded me, there was an article in the Financial Times a few years ago, front page article, which showed that the Muslim community is the biggest donor, provides the biggest donations in this country. But again, it's one of those things that my viewers will tell you. I've been talking about this for quite a while. The time has come now to stop doing this on the quiet. We need to tell the rest of the world some of the work we do. And I remember there was a very highly respected ulama, Maulana Abdullah Kapadri Sahib, who passed away in Canada a few years ago. May Allah bless him. He, in one of his last speeches that I attended, he said, we need two things. We need to have people in the media, because unless you have the control, unless you have access to the media, you can influence the media, we will never really succeed to capture the hearts and minds, because people's hearts and minds are sort of made up by what they see in the media, both print media and the other mediums as well. And the second thing is that we need to start thinking about helping people outside our communities as well, where they are suffering. And that is two things that I would leave this program with you, thoughts that I would leave you with. If you have any thoughts, maybe inshallah the next week we can talk about it. Maulana Sahib, thank you very much for coming.
Pleasure.
All the way from Huddersfield, crossing the boundary of Huddersfield to Bradford. I know you've battled huge traffic problems on the M62. May Allah bless you. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts. And inshallah, we will continue with this conversation in a few weeks' time, because this is not going to go away.
No.
Unless we as a community actually seriously start thinking about changing our ways and our means, this is something that we're going to be battling with. And as I say, unless we do it very quickly, not only will our young people suffer, but in the Allah Bachai we'll be suffering as well. Thank you very much for watching. Inshallah, I'll see you soon. Take care. Please make dua for the people of Gaza and Palestine in particular. Take care. Assalamu alaikum. May Allah be with you.